Here we go. The first questionnaire is going to be Tommy Clack. And would you guys prefer that he point to one of you and say you answer it, or do you just want a question and one of you three guys will answer?
General question, one of us will take that. That's okay.
You guys have to get your mics going there.
Okay, here we go.
Before I do that, I wanted to share with you, I meant to share it while John gave me a chance to put my mouth in gear. I got to leave at 3 tomorrow to go back to Atlanta. My memorial, the Walk of Heroes that I'm president of, is playing host today through Sunday to 420 Vietnam veteran motorcycle guys that have come in from 28 states to do their thing at our memorial. And we're hosting them in a special event on Saturday, so I need to get back Friday night to be there for them Saturday. So it's another set of brothers that will be interacting with Saturday. But my question is, out of curiosity, you used the term B company. How many Cobras and Hueys are in a company? And second part of the question is there always helicopters in the air ready to go, or are you on standby, or both?
As far as Cobra Pilots or Charlie model gunships, we had what was known as a standby team. And we had one in the scramble shack. Basically, we were on 3-minute standby. For Cobras, there were 4 pilots in there. We had 2 gunners, 2 aircraft commanders. The gunner sat up front, the
2
aircraft...
crew chiefs were in there too. It was their helicopter.
Right, yeah. But basically, what we did, we just sat in there and we waited for the phone to ring. Because when that phone rang, meant that you guys were in contact with Charlie and you were requesting air support. But when that phone rang, the 2 aircraft commanders would run out to the helicopters, start the engines up, get all the gauges in the green, while the 2 gunners would stay behind and talk to whoever's on the end of the phone and find out 3 things. Coordinates of where we're going, radio frequency, and Charlie 2's call sign. That's all we needed. The 2 gunners would run out. By the time they got out there, probably took less than 2 minutes. Okay, I would request clearance for takeoff. I'd say Cu Chi Tower. This is Diamond Head 3-6 on the beach with 2 snakes for a scramble, and that meant for them we had priority over anybody. We'd take off, we'd be airborne very quickly. So basically, we had 2 teams just sitting there. Now, back in our company area, they're on what's called a 15-minute standby, so that when we got called out, our backup team would then sit in the scramble shack, and they would be on 3-minute standby. But we never really had people in the air. Never had anybody in the air.
Tommy, was that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can I add a little bit? Yeah, the way it worked for the pilots was we had rotations. I did for an entire year. Was on the same fire team. And the first day I would be on primary alert in the scramble shack. The second day I would be on, I think it was probably my day off. Then I had a day that was secondary alert status back in the company area, but I had to be ready to go. And the 4th day was nights. And that just rotated for the whole year. We had 4 Cobra gunships when I got to Vietnam. They sent me to the Little Bears. Even though I was a trained Cobra pilot, there were no Cobras in the unit. So I was the first one that assigned, and Georgia and I. But in the Bears, I rode along on CNC missions and ash and trash, and look out the window and they just trying to show me what it was like in flying in Vietnam. And then after about a month, they sent me to Cu Chi, to B Company. A Company was the Bears. We didn't really do like the Cav, the gun teams, and most all the other units. The gun team supported their own lift companies. We didn't do it that way at all because we covered the whole 25th AO, so they used, I don't know, Cav or whoever, when they did any lifts with you guys and stuff, because I don't remember supporting any of them. But we were out there. We were actually a first call as a shoot-'em-up mission every time the phone rang. And so, like I say, 4 Cobras, 4 Charlie model Huey gunships, and about 4 light observation helicopters that flew CNC missions.
Could
2 slicks.
Yeah, we did. We had a smoke ship.
That was my question.
And I flew in that thing. We had, actually, the battalion had a Beaver, and I rode in the Beaver. It wasn't fixed wing qualified. It's the most common bush plane in the world, Alaska. That you'll definitely ride in a Beaver float plane if you go to Alaska and you go anywhere.
Yeah.
But we had one, and it was on wheels. It flew off the PSP runway, and I remember doing flare missions. They have a big hole in the cargo deck in the back, and you take the cover off, and we would drop flares, pamphlets, leaflets. We had the thing mounted up. Same thing we did with our Huey. I had a Firefly mission. We put a whole row of bank of powerful lights in there and go out there and light up things with the light. We tried all kinds of crazy stuff. We mounted a 50 cal in one. Remember that? And it shook it loose, so it didn't work so good. But somebody welded up a cradle, and we went out shooting, trying to get into those concrete reinforced bunkers and things. What else we do? I remember going out one time with some those big coffee cans with a mortar in them. You remember that?
That's right, with
you'd
an
hold it out and drop-
engineering tape on it.
and drop it out of the
arm
coffee can
Arm the mortar,
to see
but
how that would work.
that was called the Mad Bomber.
Oh, really?
That's right.
That's why
That
we
was-
Cobra Pilots had such a bad reputation as being cowboys. They just couldn't trust us.
Well, I was not just a Cobra pilot. When I was in Vietnam, I was there for 18 months. And there were several other guys who were there with that length of tour. And it got pretty crazy. I mean, we really did try things that nobody had ever tried before, ever. Vietnam really was a helicopter war, and we had this ship that would fly about 30 knots right on the treetops or right on the paddies with a funnel underneath it to smell the air. It was called a sniffer, and it could pick up people. Usually you got gunshots before you got the people reading, but you could pick up urine, and I was fascinated by that. You could smell pot, and man, let me tell you, while I was over there, they burned some, I don't know, 32-ton stash
You can
that
smell
they
my hoot.
found outside of Tay Ninh, and I mean, it was crowded in the air.
Yeah, I can smell it in my own hooch. It wasn't me, but
Yeah.
I'll tell you about one of those people sniffer missions. I rode it with the colonel. Of course, the older guys, they had to get their 4 hours a month to get their flight pay. And we're flying 140-something hours a month. But whatever, same pay, $65 a month. So the colonel flew the sniffer ship. He's like just above the trees. And then he's covered by a Cobra. That's what we did. We're a gunship back there, ready to roll in if he got anything hot.
And navigating for them.
That's right. We taught him to navigate. In fact, the front seater in the gunship had the map in his lap and a grease pencil, and he was marking hot spots and telling what track and when to turn and all that for the sniffer ship. And there was an operator in the back of the sniffer ship with his equipment, and he would call hot spot like that on the radio, and we just mark them. And then flying back to base when we're done, we would call headquarters and call in the hot spots. Before we're on the ground, there's artillery going to them. But I remember a tip one time, this happened more than once, but we're flying along there, and the different ships, hey, we're taking fire. At first they broke off. I said, okay, what's going on? And the next thing I see is muzzle flashes, and you could see two gooks manning a weapon, and they were in the open. I mean, they were not totally undercover. They were just hosing me. And so I, of course, rolled in on them and dispatched them and moved on down the road. But I remember I took some hits on that. That's pretty fast when I heard they were taking fire and there's gooks in the open and all that, and I saw the muzzle flash and I hear a big whack whack really loud, and I got some pretty big holes in my wings, my stubby little wings I had to mount the weapons on. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. It did not. No, it smelled ammonia, which is urine, right?
That's what they were looking for, was large concentrations of ammonia, which is secreted in urine. So if there's a large concentration of the enemy, they got to have latrines someplace. And you're right, Tommy. That's exactly what they're looking for, is the ammonia smell.
Well, we blew up buffaloes too, and elephants. I was launched on those things because they said, well, they're transport trucks or whatever. You know, I mean, so yeah, I rolled it right in on those things, and rockets.
Well, I flew both the sniff ship and the cover ship.
You flew Smokey too.
I flew the smoke ship. I flew a whole lot of different missions, but sniffer was one, and this is absolutely the truth. We had a mission we called the Mad Bomber, and at first what it was we would sling load 2 55-gallon drums full of aviation gas with a trip flare wired to them, and fly it over whatever was going on the ground and cut it loose. That's where the Mad Bomber got its get-go, and it got where you didn't really get much with 2 55-gallon drums, so they built a wooden chute, and you could lift one end of it, and you put mortars in there, and the pilot had a little grease pencil mark on the chin bubble of where the mortar's going to land, allegedly. And, you get up there and you get your little mark on the target and you say, fire, and the guys in back lift the chute and the mortars roll out. Then we had a mission that we called Nighthawk. And at Nighthawk, we had a big infrared or whatever they were, searchlight. And there was, guys back there, and we'd fly around looking with that at different things. They were looking, I was flying. But they would drop bombs with stuff that would show up in that kind of light, hoping that the enemy would walk through that, and then we could track them down. Then they changed it to Firefly, or is that what I was?
Firefly had a bunch of lights, but they could concentrate them or.
Well, and also Firefly got a big searchlight and a 50 cal machine gun, and they would go out because as the war progressed from into '69 and on, they grew more anti-aircraft savvy. And so if you're flying a gunship, even though the guys on the ground are in contact, you have to take the anti-aircraft sights out first. or you can't do your job. So that's what this ship was supposed to do. Turn the light on. The guy down there, he's got a 50 down there, and he's got a 50 up here, and they trade, and a helicopter with a 50 in it is not a great idea. But at night, when you got any aircraft fire, you're flying along, talking to the guy on the ground that's, a click or two from you and trying to get everything organized in your mind. And all of a sudden, here comes this red basketball. I mean, you can see the little muzzle flash, and then you can see the tracer come up, and it's going way out in front of you, Well, then it all of a sudden it turns about 45 to 90 degrees and starts coming right at you. Of course, it's you going at it, but it looks the other way. And let me tell you, it gets much bigger every foot that it travels.
I call them flaming footballs coming by when you're trading rounds with them.
Oh, it's
Just hoping you don't find one, but I got lucky.
George was really good, Grinnell, at knocking those sites out. We call them donut holes. They put their 51 on the dirt in the middle, and then they dig a hole all the way around it. So the operator of the machine gun was pretty well protected. So you had to hit what you were aiming at or else.
Do you guys think we were in the wrong unit? My God, you guys had a blast.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah,
I couldn't believe they actually paid me to do that.
Yeah.
exactly.
They just paid you to blow shit up.
How much-
I never came home with one bullet left on my helicopter.
How much did you get paid for flying in those days?
Less than 10,000 for the year. I remember the tax man said.
I think I got, at the end, after I had been promoted to chief warrant officer, I was getting about $400 a month for something.
I remember the flight pay was $65, I think.
They weren't
Yeah.
getting paid much more than we were.
No, oh no,
But we were having a lot more fun.
Yeah. Okay. I had mentioned earlier that there was a Cobra that had actually been credited with getting a POW, and that, of course, is our friend Greg, and he's going to tell you briefly what it was like to go down in the history books as probably the only Cobra that took a POW.
Well, a fact pilot called us out in the plain of reeds during the monsoon season. He had spotted a sampan that was hidden in one of those creek lines that go through there. Although everything was underwater, if they got caught during the day, they'd hide one of these creek lines. And he saw them. They called us out there to blow them up, and that's what we did. It was a big sampan, had about 10 people in it. And so we blew it up, and of course, people went everywhere. And a couple of them, tried to get away from the sampan, so we proceeded to go hunting. And we shot all of our guns, miniguns, were either empty or jammed. So all we had left was rockets. I did mention monsoon season. When you can't see anything, the rocket has to go 300 feet to arm if you torqued it right when you made it up. So, you had to be at least 300 feet, or else you were stabbing somebody, you know? So, but in the rain, we couldn't see them or, you know, or stab them, although we did have a lot of rockets around this particular person and shrapnel wounds, you know. But I called and for a slick to come pick this individual up, and there's only one left alive, and they said it would be, you know, 20 minutes or something, and hell, we only had about 10 minutes of fuel left. So I came to a hover over the plain of reeds there and had my gunner up front climb out on the skid in the rain and open the ammo bay door. The Cobra, if you got a picture of the Cobra, right underneath where the pilots sit, is the ammo bay. And the doors open this way, and there are two big canisters in there, one for miniguns, 40 Mike, whatever you happen to have. And you could slide those out or, you know, whatever. So I thought, you know, we'll just capture this person. And so I talked to my pilot, and neither one of us had a gun. A Cobra was really hard to put a gun in because the M16 didn't fit. There wasn't a long enough space that wasn't occupied with something, and it was only, about 36 inches wide, and that's outside to outside. So neither one of us had a gun. So I called my wingman, and neither one of them had a gun. So in the Cobra, there's this big glass cockpit, and so you've got a breakout knife. So if you can't crash, there's.
I used it. I'm glad it was.
And you can't get out because your door is jammed somehow. You've got this knife that you can stab through the plexiglass. Weighs about 10 pounds. It's got a blade about that long. And so that was the weapon that we used to capture this person. So I flew up, and, you know, we started motioning for them to get on, and it was a nurse. It was an NVA nurse.
Were you having him get in the
Yeah, I sat on one of the ammo bay doors. That's exactly right.
They're like big benches. They're perfectly flat, held by cables.
Yeah, so I could get down where it, you know, down into the water enough for them to get on board and hold on quick, because I went straight up, you know, to about 500 feet in case they had anything nasty in mind, and flew to a fire support base on the way back to Coochee and asked for a troop with a gun to come capture this prisoner. And so I landed there, and they came and got the nurse, and I mean, they beat the hell out of her too. And I didn't know it was a woman until the following day when I got the word that the CG of the 25th Infantry Division in his morning briefing was told about the episode, and his orders were not to capture any more prisoners. So,
Like I said, us Cobra Pilots, we were real cowboys.
I,
How much shit did you get from your command after that?
well, nobody liked the idea that I had captured it except the other pilots, you know, they all.
Good bar story.
Who else has a question?
Well, let me finish real quick here. Warrant Officer Busey, if you were my wingman, I would have ordered you to carry a sidearm. Okay? And Chuck will back me up. Every time I flew, actually they gave me a choice of weapons. They give you a 38, 6-shot 38, or they give me a 45 caliber. And I said, well, I don't want to be getting shot down, have to DD Mao across some rice paddy trying to stick an individual bullet into the revolver, so I took the 45 cal. I was always armed.
Everybody on my fire team was armed, and I think everybody, you had your choice, 45, 38, or a long gun. I carried the 38. It was easy to swing around in front of my future family. And the other thing, you know, we had pretty good armor plating protection in the Cobra. The Hueys got shot down a lot more because they weren't built as a gunship. We had armor plating up to 30 caliber protecting the compressor section of the engine, the fuel bladders, the floor. Our seats had large, protection, nothing in the front. So what the pilots did was wear a chicken board, we called it. It has was a thick plate of layers of, I think, Kevlar and lead or whatever. It was heavy.
Ceramic, actually.
The ceramic.
But it'd take, like I say, 30 cal, and it was in a canvas, OD canvas harness you could wear and around. Well, we didn't do that. We took it out of there. So it was just a piece of white stuff, and we had shoulder harness on in the helicopter. We put on the straps on. We'd stick our chicken board in there, sitting right here, with
And
a
a 45?
38 or 45. and then what would I do to start a gun run, see? You could lock that shoulder harness. I believe it was right here on this side, the handle. And so I'd lean forward and lock that baby, so my chicken board leaned out right here, right? So I could do this when I'm shooting. And actually, some of the pilots, George Grinnell carried an M79 grenade launcher for a while, and he also carried an M16. He laid it in like sideways up on the glare shield.
Really?
Yeah.
I never was able to get one in there. But let me tell you about being armed when you get shot down and have to run across the paddy. When you hit the ground, you're not thinking about guns. You're thinking about getting the hell out of that helicopter or whatever's left of it.
We had a holster for them.
Well,
We're
I
like
know.
cowboys. They hung, we had
but
it, the guns
do you
hung way
know-
down here.
Do you know how uncomfortable it is to fly with a 45 in your crotch for 6 hours?
Do you-
let me tell you, it's not warm and friendly.
Warrant Officer Busey, do you know how uncomfortable it is DD Mowing across a rice paddy unarmed?
Well, I know how it is to run through elephant grass unarmed.
Main thing was to look cool, right, Bob?
Oh, yeah. We were like the Wild West. Like holsters, okay, that hung, the gun was down here. That's the way we walked around.
We're always jealous of the cab with the big
Hell,
cowboy hats, you know.
We had a guy shot in the neck in a gunfight. I'm talking like Old West. 2 pilots, both of them officers.
There was alcohol involved.
And, you know, one of them shot the other one. Now, you know, I've always wondered how they explained that one. But, yeah, that's a fact. No. I asked for a Purple Heart from being an associate of this fool one night. We got in a fight with fire extinguishers and glasses that we had lighter fluid in. And, you know, one guy would throw this and the other guy would throw that. I got hit in the eye with a boot. And it was bleeding and everything, so We went from our company area down the road to the hospital, which was not very far, 150, 200 yards, yelling Purple Heart the whole way.
You got to do like George Bush when he chucked them boots. That guy was fast.
Yeah, but, yes.
How did you react with the support group? In other words, what I'm saying is that who took care of maintaining the helicopters? Were they the same group taking care of the same chopper? Or was it on a rotation? Did you run the same chopper all the time? Or?
No.
Each crew chief had his own chopper. He was responsible for it. The flight crew, the pilots, went out there and took whatever was up that day.
The Cobra's crew chief didn't fly with his ship, but all the other ships that we had, except the Loaches, I guess, the crew chief flew on board, and that's why, you know, your crew chief, Cobra crew chief, was a very important part of the mission, because your ass is riding on his work, and I never had a failure. I got about 1,700 hours in combat, and I never had. Well, I had one mechanical problem flying with him. You know, but he did get us down on the ground safely. But
Which one was it?
neither one of us had a gun.
Was that at night or the day one?
That was the day one.
Okay.
Yeah. Neither one of us had a gun.
And
and there's people there, you know, so I run out there and try to hide, you know, get out of this helicopter and run out there and try to hide behind the berm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we didn't know if they were friendlies or enemy when we saw them coming, and
Yeah.
when we bailed out, I mean, we got smoke in the cockpits. You're thinking fire. We got to get down on the ground. So we were yelling Mayday back, and we're in radio range of Cochise. We're telling our company talk there, and so we got it on the ground, and the smoke immediately came from the engine compartment through the cockpit. We said, "Oh man, we just bailed. We saw some people over there running towards us. Fortunately, it was friendlies."
Yeah.
But this other time I went down at night was a big battle like you see in the movies. One of the movies reminded me of it when they're going ashore, and there's all this. You know, we used three radios in there. We had UHF Fox mic. We talked to the ground on Fox mic, and VHF. We listened to the Beatles playing on our gun runs from they transmit out of Hanoi on that radio, and so there was noise all the time coming on there, and of course about every 2 minutes, Air Force on guard. I think that was Air Force Common we called it, but so we're going on this mission, and Bob was my wingman, and it was middle of the night. There's a big battle already going on. When we get there, the flare ship's already dropped flares, and a lot of, like I say, the radios are really busy. And they gave me a target. And what we did after we, unfortunately, I was in the helicopter that hit friendlies once after I first got there. Didn't know what was going on. We were grounded for a week or two to do safety training, changed our tactics, and what we did after that was we didn't roll in on the first pass and fire for effect. We put one pair out. We put white phosphorus, Willie Pete in the center tube, number 1 tube, on one pair of the rockets, and we'd select inboard or outboard one pair, and here comes my mark, and put them down, and immediately make a big white puff of smoke, and they say, okay, move those rounds 50 meters north and 100 meters west, or wherever, or that you're on the target, and then the wingman could come right behind you and hit that target, and then it was on. But on that night, I put down my marking round, and they're trying to adjust my mark, and all of a sudden I got a bright warning light on the panel. It was the transmission oil chip detector light. What that means is there's metal. Your transmission's making metal, and when the transmission ceases to function on a helicopter, the blades kind of go. And they're done. So you're a rock. So that's why we never flew above 2,000 feet with them, because you got to get on the ground. The fastest I ever got on the ground was at midair. Man, it didn't take any time at all. But normally, I got it down in the jungle. I just, I couldn't get in on the radio, so I found a black hole that looked like it was an opening area in the jungle, and put it in there. And I couldn't talk to Bob. There's just too much radio traffic because there was all kinds of stuff going on, other people shooting and artillery and all that. But Greg and I bailed, and we're looking for some help because we're trying to get our flare ship over to come pick us up with a Huey, and there's Bob. I said, "Oh, good, we're covered." Bob was circling us, so he made the call and got us rescued, and we went home, left the chopper in the jungle, and they came the next day with a Chinook or a crane and lifted it out of there and brought it back, and we fixed it.
Pipe
But,
smoke.
pipe smoke, exactly. What we had for maintenance, we had our own company hangars. It was we did routine maintenance in there, and the choppers were always.
Well, there's a crew chief, I think he's a crew chief.
Yeah, he had a white
that I've
shirt on
been-
earlier. I think he's not here now.
Oh, he's not here?
No, I think he was a wolfhound who became a mechanic.
That's right.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
He worked on a helicopter, yeah.
He was here early this morning, and he was
Yeah.
here yesterday. He had a white shirt on
I
today.
wish I could remember.
Okay, yeah, because he
Okay.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
But we had depot level maintenance further down the field from us for major repairs. Well, the one time I remember taking a helicopter down there was I got I don't know, multiple dozens of holes through the helicopter. I don't know what I was shooting at, but I had some big holes in the wings. I got 51 cals all the way down to small arms, just all over the dang thing. It was kind of junk. So we parked it, and the maintenance come out and looked at it and said, "Oh, man." So they had me come out and hover it all the way down because they didn't trust flying the thing. In fact, they wouldn't put anybody in there with me, so they put a bunch of sandbags in the front seat, and I hovered it down there and let them have it.
Okay, we've got another question back here from a guy that had a ton of experience flying in helicopters.
The hell are you talking about? Well, he's making that up. I just got to say, I admire you guys. I just can't get over your ability. Had to be the biggest adrenaline rush in the world.
It
But
was a rush.
and you especially I can't get over because John will tell you, there wasn't a second we didn't have a gun. If you took the shit, you took your gun. You took a leak, you took
Well, a Cobra was a gun. You know, when you got in a Cobra, you strapped it on, and it became a gun. That's all it was a gun.
You're
And-
right, but we could run with ours.
Yeah, we couldn't run ours very far.
All right, let's take another question over here from a guy that did a lot of writing on helicopters. And Greg, what do you have to say to these guys? I know you're just sitting here itching to ask a question.
Always glad to see you guys show up. I mean, they're here, we're gonna break, we're gonna make it out of here. That's all I have to say for you guys. I mean, it was
Yeah, we
amazing.
didn't have any idea. We were the missions. I mean, I remember all the shooting, every mission, rolling in and hitting it where you wanted them. But we couldn't see you guys, and so now it's
All right, another
Amazing.
question right here.
Do you have any hunter-killer team stories to tell? You know, the Loach
I
flying
do.
in? Okay.
I'll tell a real quick one. I was out hunting in a Cobra with my wingman up high, again in the plain of reeds, and we found a sandpan, we blew it up, and one guy got away, and so we're out here looking for him, and one of the hunter-killer teams flies up with the Loach and the Cobra, and I said, "Well, can we look for the guy?" And I said, "Sure, you bet." So I climbed up to a couple hundred feet and started flying in a circle, and this Loach was down, buzzing, right? I mean, right on top of the reeds. And this one that we didn't get stood up and opened up with his AK on this little loach, and I saw the cockpit glass flying everywhere. I didn't think there was a way in the world that guy was going to be alive. But I rolled in to keep the guy's heads down. The loach pilot backed up, and I said, you know, I'll kill this guy for you. And he said, no, he's mine. He brought his loach back up, and he got about, I'd say maybe 200 feet from where the guy was in the reeds, and had a minigun on the side. And he emptied that minigun. He backed that loach right up. But those guys were. We had another guy that was in our company that transferred over to the 3/4 cab that got blown right out of the air. He was flying a hunter killer, and of course, somebody jumped up on the side, 50 feet from him, and opened up, and he got wounded in the arm. But when he opened up, he jerked the loach over, and it rolled around on the ground for a little while, But he got out alive, and so those guys.
Yeah, I remember the loach. It was like super maneuverable, and it could instantly change direction. It was like a bumblebee down there, right on in the dirt. The Cobras, we had estrin back here to hold back, so we had could fly and be able to roll in. And the way I understood it, the guy in the back of the loach had a box of HE and a box of CS, and then they had some. So they'd come up on holes and boom, throw CS in there and see if something come out.
Hand grenades.
No, they used to come to us to get 81 millimeter mortars.
Yeah,
They could pitch them out.
Oh.
we used.
Combine fire.
That's what we did, because the Charlie model was so limited in the firepower that it could carry rockets. Okay, we'd land at some fire support base and send a crew chief or door gunner out for hand grenades, and it was real easy for us to get hand grenades. Everybody gave them up readily, and we'd carry a case of hand grenades. This is if we were escorting insertions, and we would go to the LZs first and look them over, decide where we were going to have the lift ships land, and then scout around to see if there were any kind of enemy that we could find. And if we found a bunker or something that looked like they could hide, rather than waste a rocket on it, because we wanted to save those for when the troops were there, we'd throw hand grenades. And
I was the armament officer in my unit, and I enjoyed trying different combinations on the Cobras. They came with a scout configuration with little 7 rocket pods and things, which my new Cobra, when I was a new guy, and you saw in the picture, had one of those on it. I immediately put all the 19 rocket pods on there, hog configuration. So we had 76 7.62 or 2.75 folding fin arrow rockets. So we had a 17-pound warhead. It stuck out of the rocket pod like that, and it was equivalent to a 105 howitzer round. And I could put all kinds of fuses on the end of the thing for the shooting in the swamp, like Greg's saying there. The rocket would go in the ground, and before it detonated, it'd be 10 feet in the ground, so it made a cone of mud come out of it. And then, so we put proximity fuses for that kind of terrain, which would detonate it at 7 feet off the surface. And then also with the jungle, we'd put a delayed fuse on them, so it'd go through the triple canopy and get down in there before it went off. We had flechette warheads on them. Like I say, we had the Willie Pete warheads. And then we had on the,
Anti-tank, we had the anti-tank too.
all different kinds of stuff I could play with. But I got to, sight them all in and stuff. We had a South Vietnamese Air Force A-1E Sky Raider that had gotten shot down out there, and that's what I used to sight them in. But I've had missions to go. In one particular I can recall, the NVA had taken over the village, run all the locals off. They put concrete in their bunkers in the houses, and they were flying the NVA flag in the village. And so I was ordered to go out and destroy the village, which I did. And me and I don't know who was with me, but we would put on 76 rockets, and I'd go down one of us on each side of the main street, and you could select a single pair or two, or whatever, or salvo. And so we'd put 19 pair inboard, and I'd hold down the trigger, and I'd sling out 38 rockets, and I'd reach in and go outboard, sling out another 38, and we go back and slam it. I fired 1,000 rockets that day, so we got pretty good at shooting those things. But we had 8,000 rounds of 7.62 minigun, which we could fire in the 4,000 rounds a minute or 2,400 rounds a minute, whatever it was, for a slow and a fast rate. And you could see it looked like a water hose. The tracers were every third round, but it was just a solid red line. At night and day, you could just see them go out and where right they're hitting. So just walk them right onto whatever you want to hit with it. But they had 400 rounds of 40 millimeter grenade, which also had a 10-meter kill radius, and that was a pretty cool weapon. It was the chunker, and they put on the nose of the Hueys. Pretty slow rate. The Cobra, man, boom, 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 boom. It laid him down, so it was pretty fun.
Chuck Moore, Minister of Death, praying for war.
No,
Yeah.
we get badly disoriented. the helicopter
Temporarily
pilots never get
disoriented.
lost.
Yeah. You know how dark it was over there.
Go for the flares.
You know how dark it was over there. I'm telling you, there were places where I don't think there was ever any light.
Oh, it was dark. No nav aids of any kind.
No.
Huh?
Nope. Nope. Didn't have GPS.
Go ahead.
Did you have your choice of what you wanted to carry? Like, I would have picked the minigun in a heartbeat.
Well, the minigun and the 40 were both, the Wingstore weapons, I put all rockets on there. You could put minigun pods on there and things. And the backseater, the aircraft commander, fired all the Wingstore weapons. In emergency mode, he could stow and fire the turret weapons. The turret was under the front seat. It went 170 degrees each way, and it had a big sight on a gimbal that sat between the front seater's legs. His controls were little short side stick controls like the F-16s and things. But he'd take this weapon sight and look through it. There's a reticle, little red dot, put it right on what you want to hit. You could see the gun, and you could point at something right here, for instance, and you look at the gun underneath, and it's pointing over here. It's all computer, but we didn't have a choice. See, I did try dual. I put dual minis in the nose for the wingman to cover the lead.
It's that versatile where you could switch stuff around like that?
It takes a little time, but I had a crew that was all they did was maintain weapons and change configurations. But normally we had 140 and one mini in the turret.
Yeah, that was normal.
Yes, I have a question for Chuck Moore, I believe, the pilot. The Cobra that you crashed, it was upside down. How did you get out of that thing?
With that breakout knife. Yeah, we of course we were pretty well trained, and things, even though your brain's not working so well, training, that's where you fall back on training. So I just grabbed it off. It's mounted right in front of the aircraft commander in the back on top of the glare shield. In a couple clips, you yank it out of there. And it's made so that as soon as you hit that plexiglass, it just comes out. I mean, it breaks right apart. Where normally you couldn't bust your way out of there without it. No way. So we crawled out. Yeah. Nobody hurt. Unbelievable. The Charlie model, my buddy Heen Moore, my hooch mate, we played, we rolled the dice cup for thousands of hours and all that. We went to flight school together. That I ran into him. Well, his helicopter kind of stayed kind of level, but he got into a controllable descent, and he just maintained until they hit in a rice paddy, so they landed in the water in the rice paddy, and they all got out, and nobody hurt. So,
Chuck.
You know, thanks to
why
you
don't you tell
guys.
them what your ride was like going down?
oh boy. Well, yeah, I of course immediately thought it was all over. The first thing I noticed was when the blades hit, they're going opposite directions. There was a tremendous, if you can imagine, bang, and then immediate severe vibration, mast bumping, and again, the training told me bottom the collective. Normally, mast bumping means it misshapes the round mass and it separates, but it stayed together, and we wrote it down. I lowered the collective. I just okay, we're just I guess I screamed like a little girl, Bob said, and I didn't remember that. But
Well, when people are excited, their voices go up a couple of lines.
yeah, I was having fun. I was just really excited about it. So yeah, I got to about 150 feet, something like that, and I'm coming down pretty fast, of course, with the collective bottom, and I could have a little control to slow myself down a little bit, and I just hauled the stick back, pulled the collective up under my arm, and held on. And we hit the ground, and over. And that was it.
Yeah, let me
You
tell you
know,
one more
thank-
thing he told me that he left out of the story. He said his helicopter was shaking so violently that he physically could not see the gauges on the ship. There's a whole bunch of gauges. They were shaking so much he couldn't read any of them. No, I guess you did D2, yes. Now, real quick, just
Actually, I wished after that, I tried to get him to install a trailer hitch ball in my seat.
yeah. Now, let me explain how you get in and out of a Cobra. Okay, the aircraft commander sits in the back, and it's like a gull-style wing, like a DeLorean. The aircraft commander, his opens up on the right. The gunner in the front, it opens up on the left. So anytime a Cobra gets shot down, it's bound to land on one side. So one guy's going to have to take his little breakout knife.
Can't go from front to back.
Yeah, right. But you don't have much room there, though.
No, you can't crawl from one.
Yeah.
No.
But once you're on one side, so one of the guys is always going to be trapped in a crash. And unfortunately, when he landed on his side, so he had to.
I sacrificed myself. I meant to do that.
Okay, good. Yeah, Dick.
They now make systems, and we make it at our plant, but they're a little explosive charge that'll take out your canopies for you. I individually ask each of you a question that you may want to share with the rest of the guys. We have all learned, talking to each other, that each of us wound up with a different perspective of each of the battles we were in. What we saw was what was in front of us, and what each of us saw was different from what the other one saw. You guys had a total overview. We know how chaotic Diamond 1 was. There was a lot coming into the perimeter. There was a lot going out of the perimeter. What did it look like from the air?
Well, first of all, when we got scrambled, we had the general location, the coordinates of where you were, but we really didn't need them because once you get up to about 1,000 feet, you see all hell breaking loose out in the distance. I mean, usually there's artillery shells. You guys got rockets and mortars coming in, okay? Green tracers coming in. You got red tracers going out. I mean, you got flare ship up there dropping flares. I mean, you see, it's like a tremendous light show. Okay, actually, it's at times, if it wasn't so deadly, you'd be almost enthralled.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was pretty because a lot of different colors, explosions. Of course, now you guys could hear the sounds and the smells. We didn't experience that. We just saw this tremendous light show. So we knew exactly where to go because that's where the action was because you guys were in a small area and you generally were surrounded. And so it was just interesting to see from our perspective what it was like in the air because it looked like all hell was breaking loose.
Right. Now, I don't know what Cobra you flew, that you didn't smell anything, but I would come back with rocket motor soot all
Okay.
over my face.
Okay,
No, that was Cobra.
no,
It-
not so much in the Cobras.
Oh, yeah, in the Cobra.
Well, this
And
is
when
from
they got the air-conditioned Cobras, the first ones just was regular air. Then they got an air-conditioned one that just shot, steam, looked like steam, but it was cold air.
It spit ice
They
on
were
you.
so humid, it would throw ice at you. And But that was always after it froze your balls, because they had it one right here that came out between your legs, and I mean, whoa, that sumbitch
You
was
should have put a
cold.
gun here to block it then, okay?
There you go. See? We didn't have any troubles, did we?
No, we didn't have a trouble.
I remember vividly going out there. I think I was the first one on one of those battles out there, because there wasn't a whole lot going on when I got there. But shortly thereafter, we had to figure out something. You had artillery, TAC Air, Snoopy, and us. And as I recall, we divided the battlefield into 4 quadrants, and we each took one. We had our flare ship overhead the whole battle. But I counted up to 3. I counted 3 51 cal positions firing there on us. We first come in there, and they're kind of just lighting up the sky like this, thinking we would fly on into them, I guess. But so I said, well, it's at one point I got a little tired of that, so I rolled in on one of them and see how that'd work out. And I went as steep as I could, because we kind of knew how they operated, and I had a real steep dive going, and I'm just, rockets hosing them way in. Well, they keep shooting rounds right back up my tracers, and they never let up. So I said, well, okay, that's enough of that, and I better save some ammo for the other stuff. So what we had to do was go lights out, and I had my wingman go above 2,000 feet, and I'd stay below 1,500 feet. That way we didn't mix it up, and we were flying in the dark, couldn't see us. So that solved the problem. And then when I was done with expendable ordnance, I said, okay, I'm going to light it up, and I'm coming up, and you go down and do a thing.
It got pretty crowded sometimes in the air over a battle.
Oh, we did have to call for artillery clearance as soon as we launched off of Coochie.
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the things that happened that night, I was actually in 2nd or 27th Battalion headquarters that night, and was liaison with all the artillery for the Wolfhounds. And they, besides calling for ceasefire in certain areas, what people on the ground don't understand is y'all use 4 quadrants. In the artillery, we use 4 quadrants. And knowing all the artillery batteries around y'all at Diamond 1 that night, certain batteries fired in certain locations, so we tried to make sure artillery did not go over your position on the ground. 105s are notorious for being short round. If you take a 105 and you fire it at a football field and you're dead center with the first round, the next 99 rounds will be all over 20, 30, 40 yards away. So that's one of the things that in artillery, when they were up in the air, we had to make sure when they were in a certain quadrant, that was my job with the battalion, was that the artillery were not firing where y'all were firing and flying across that. Don't know if we ever had any mid-air collisions with artillery rounds.
I heard about one.
Okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
What, not us.
But it is an orchestrated battle besides what y'all are doing on the ground. Amazing to see that stuff unfold.
And I was enjoying. I mean, the battle was. I knew it was a good one. It was a once in a lifetime deal or your career. So I couldn't wait to get back. So what we did was we ran out of our ammo and fuel. We rushed back to Coochie and called for a secondary fire team to come out. I said, oh yeah, we got back. And I said, hey, they want us right back out there, which I remember going in. I talked to the guy, whoever I was talking to on the ground, and I said, light up your bunker line and perimeter. And so I got the flares on the perimeter, and then they said put them in the wires. And I was putting in the wires, and so I wanted to see results. So we flew all night, and I wanted to get there after daylight. So we go back after daylight. We counted over 200 bodies. We helped with that. We helped. I was going policing up the battlefield. I heard you hit an LP out there in a bomb crater. 7 guys, I understand. You never heard from them. They didn't get back out of there. Then I found a couple stragglers, like I say, that were trying to depart there. Yeah, I remember that stuff real well till today.
So as you're flying during the battle, like over Diamond 1, you get a bird's eye, no pun intended, view of the whole area. Is it like we would imagine it? Is it like total chaos? Do you see guys running from one place to another? And I mean, What is
Yeah, it depends on your altitude. I know at Mold City, we were in Charlie models, and we were fairly low, and we could see hand-to-hand fighting in Burn. It was really, and that was really the first time a base like that had been set on the border. That was in December 22nd of '68, and we were the only fire team. We were the only two helicopters that went out to that battle. I never did figure out why they didn't send more, because we had another team on standby when we took off. So, but they didn't. And so Hayne, who was the fire team leader, I was flying with him, split the team up because there was so much going on down there that they needed help in more than one location. So he gave one guy to Larry King, who was flying on his wing, and he worked with one group on the ground, and Hayne worked with another group on the ground. So, and they initially, when in the after action report reported that there were two fire teams, there were just two helicopters.
To further answer your question, Big John, a lot of times we couldn't see much unless we had a flare ship above us. But one of the things that I hardly ever looked at was you guys.
Right.
Did not look and say, because I wasn't concerned with you guys. I was concerned with guys in the wire, okay, or people that were coming at you. So my attention, you might call it target fixation. Okay, I'm looking at what I'm supposed to try to shoot and kill. Okay, so I could not tell you what any of you guys were doing, but I assume most of you guys were in bunkers or something, or fighting positions. We were looking, and you could occasionally see, yeah, guys moving, trying to get to the wire, or coming toward it. So we were looking precisely where we wanted to shoot and kill people.
Yeah, we're busy. We're concentrating on the target and making sure we don't get off target. And we were concentrating on our altitude. We got to break it off before you get too low, and you really can't see anything until you do get low. And now you're worried about not, getting in trouble. So you're planning your breakout, keeping track of your wingman, make sure you're in everything's, on target, watching where his grounds are going. So no, we didn't see you guys much.
And we had whenever we'd go, and they suspected that it was a hot LZ when the Little Bears would take 10 ships and put us in, they usually had a Smoky. They'd usually run that Smoky down the hedgerow line or wherever we were going to insert, because that's where we usually got ambushed from. Was that a separate part of the operation?
Right. They did not launch a Smoky with the guns. Normally, we'd have a flare ship that tried to get out ahead of us to light up the battlefield, and then we went as a fire team. And Smoky was a separate mission. We didn't even, we didn't coordinate with them.
Was the smoke? I mean, it wasn't CS gas or anything.
Oil.
Oil.
A big ring with whole pinholes going all the way around the tailpipe. It just injected oil into that hot exhaust.
Yes.
Okay.
And you had to fly fairly slow to get any hacking
low.
of the smoke.
Yeah, you couldn't go more than probably 60 knots.
Oh, you didn't go 60
Because
knots?
if you go anything faster than that, the smoke disperses.
Shit,
you
I
ever
was
fly
lucky
any?
to go
He
30
hovered.
knots.
Okay.
My question is, how'd you guys work with Snoopy, and then when the Thunder Chiefs come rolling in, do you guys just pull out and give them a chance to fly in?
Where's Dick Glover? Charlie 2.
He went outside for a smoke.
Okay, well.
Maybe I didn't hear it when you answered
Okay,
it.
no, we were always in contact with Dick Glover. Okay, his call sign was Charlie 2. Okay,
I understand that.
He was responsible for all the air support.
Okay.
So if there were some F4s coming in, they didn't nearly have the time on station that we had. Okay? So Chuck would tell us to back off, okay, and he would tell us exactly where the F4s were going to make their runs so that we could stay on an opposite side and get away from them. So we were in contact with him, and then once the F4's finished, then he'd say, okay, you're clear to go back hot.
Yeah, F-Force would come down from Da Nang, and they go try to hit, and they wouldn't, they're not that I mean, accurate like us, we see what we're hitting because they're over about 100 miles away when they were rounds hit the ground. But we'd say, hey, you guys taking fire there, you might want to, you know.
I thought we had 105 Thunder Chiefs that came out of Saigon because it was the only one armed with 20 mil. We never had Phantoms. I didn't think we had any
Oh,
Phantoms
no, they were
that far
Phantoms.
south.
Now, the 105 Thunder Chief, called the Thud, was actually a bomber. It was used mostly
Right.
against North Vietnam. Now, I've seen a lot of F-4s work out in our area of operation. Never saw 105, but there could have been some. Now, 105 could carry a tremendous load.
Well, it
They
seemed
were a
like
heavy bomber.
Seemed like we had a lot of, some of the areas like in the Hobo and the Bolo Woods where the 105s came in, even around.
Oh, yeah.
Napalm, yeah,
The
I remember
F-4s
that, yeah.
dropped
But we'd
napalm.
stand back and let them get done and go home, and then we'd go.
Okay,
go in.
and even with Puff, then you'd wait till
Yeah.
or he would get done, wait till you guys worked out, and then he would come in?
Separate, yeah.
Yes. Yes.
You probably can't see me, but you can hear me. Kind of off subject of all the all the rounds and stuff. Is there anything that you regret? And I hope that isn't too disturbing of a question, but in all your time in Vietnam and all your service, is there anything that the three of you regret that you'd like to talk about?
Yeah, briefly, Greg captured a prisoner of war, and I had an opportunity to do it once. We were supporting a A-Team Special Forces camp real close to the Cambodian border, and we were on another mission, and we'd expended almost all of our ordnance when we heard that they had three, I guess, for lack of a better word, spies that had escaped from the A camp that the Special Forces had. Normally what these Special Forces do, they would get some of the indigenous population to help them build their perimeter defenses and all that kind of stuff. And apparently, three of the people that they hired and they thought were trustworthy were not. They were NVA spies. So they had left, and they were heading into Cambodia, which was about maybe just a click away, not far. And so they called us out there, and we didn't have much ammunition because like we had already finished. I was able to kill two of the three people. Now, the third guy was wounded, laying in a rice paddy. So I called them and said, listen, we got a guy here. You can come pick him up, take him as prisoner of war. And the response was, no, kill him. Well, I had somewhat of a moral dilemma at the time. Guy was wounded. And I said, you can't come and get him? He says, no, kill him. Next thing I know, I got this very authoritative voice on the radio. Turns out it was the brigade, 1st Brigade Commander, full colonel. And he's giving me a direct order to execute the guy. He said he's an enemy spy. So by this time, we're all out of ammunition. And unlike my warrant officer friend Greg Busey, we had sidearms. So I go down there, and I'm hovering, okay, about 3 feet off the ground, in the middle of nowhere, total flat, no trees, and the Cambodian border is real close. So anybody with a pop gun could take us out. I'm hovering over this guy. My gunner, his name was Warrant Officer Watson. So I ordered him to go ahead and take out his pistol, shoot the guy. So he pulls out his pistol, opens the thing, goes out and goes, click, misfire, crap. Okay, so I pull around, get out of there because I don't want to stay hovering. He's trying to clear his weapon. Pull back down there again. He opens the window. He shoots the guy several times and killed him. I suppose that's probably the only regret, Tim. Oh, I'm sorry, there. The only regret that I had, the guy was unarmed. He was wounded. It wasn't that far from the Special Forces camp. They could have come out and got him, but they probably would have shot him anyway. But I'd already been chewed out once by my company commander when I made an error in judgment and questioned the commanding general's judgment one night. So I didn't want to get chewed out again. I followed orders, and I shot well, I didn't shoot the guy, but I ordered my front seat gunner to shoot the guy. So that's probably the only questionable thing that I ever did in the war that I might have regretted. But I was following orders, and he was an enemy combatant, and it's possible he could have survived. And, you know, who knows, a month later could have killed an American soldier. So it didn't bother me. Okay, I did it with a clean conscience, but if you think about something you might regret, that could possibly be on the list.
Yeah, we had free fire zones where we didn't even have to call the village chief and get his permission. And if we saw anybody in there, they were fair game. And going back home a couple times, I would go through those, and every once in a while you see somebody in there, and I killed a few guys that probably didn't know where they were. Particularly one, and I was with Hayne in a Huey, and we saw a guy on a bicycle, and we rolled in and blew him up, and we decided, well, the bicycle still looked usable, so we landed and we picked it up, and we took it back to company air, and we rode back and forth, Remember that? It had chicken feathers all over it. I think he's just a lost chicken farmer, but so I kind of feel bad about that.
I guess what I regret the most is I turned into a hunter. I got that bloodlust. And it was it was different. It wasn't a normal mental outlook. I mean, to be that, or at least for me, to be that vicious, want to see the guys that I'm killing, and and I'll do anything to get that done. And we named our fire team the Professional Killers, and we had 8x10 glossy photos made up so we could drop these photos to on the battlefield to let them know who was out there. And I don't know if we ever dropped that many of them. I certainly didn't. But I had a crazy wingman named Robert Beck. First time he flew on my wing, I went in on the target and I overflew the target, which I did often. And the first thing I know is there's tracers going everywhere. I'm saying, oh my God, what has happened? Well, it was my wingman. He said, I'm covering you. I said, you're going to shoot me down. But he was really something. And he flew into a mountain about 2 months in Tennessee, about 2 months after he got back. And I regret that. He was a good friend, and took me a long time to recover my humanity.
That's a good way of putting it. That's a good way of putting it. You guys, when you watch movies about combat and flying, and
Sure.
Oh, I love the military
okay,
channel.
which one do you guys think is the most realistic of any of them that you've watched?
You talking about Hollywood movies?
Yeah.
Robert Duvall, what's the one where they're rolling in on the beach? And he's got
Apocalypse Now.
That was exactly like some of those battles rolling in on you guys. All this stuff going on, and he's got it. We had our spit shine boots, the Hooch Girl spit shine the night before, starch fatigues. He had the mirrored, I got the mirror glasses now. That's how it was. And the radio you could hear was just constant talk, all these different people talking on over his radios. That's how it was.
They didn't have a loudspeaker, though, playing Valhalla, did they?
No, I didn't hear that, but we did. Yeah, it was kind of like that. That's what it reminded me of.
How about you, Greg?
know that they really produced a realistic movie.
Here, here. As a matter of fact, for years, probably the first Vietnam-era movie I ever saw was really not one. It was First Blood, John Rambo.
Oh, yeah.
That's not really one, okay? I never saw Apocalypse Now, Full Metal Jacket. I know that so many times the American soldier was portrayed as a bloodthirsty killer, you know, pillaging and raping, you know, villages and stuff like that. So I've never really seen anyone except the book written by Hal Moore, Lieutenant General Hal Moore,
Yep.
Once We Were Soldiers, Young and Heart.
Good one.
And Joe Galloway.
Yep.
Joe Galloway is one of my Facebook friends. For those of you who don't know, Joe Galloway was a UPI reporter at Ashow Valley there. And he rode in with them. And he was actually awarded a Bronze Star for heroism for his activities there. And all he was a photographer. But he wrote the book with Hal Moore.
Yep.
And so that, if I had to pick a movie that was realistic, at least from the helicopter scenes,
Yep.
that was probably the most realistic Hollywood movie that I've seen.
Okay, we're going to take a 15-minute break, and we'll come back and talk a little bit more with the pilots. So 15 minutes.